press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
In the last class, we are learning about the Mughal Empire, isn't it? I already learnt about the important emperors of the Mughals. Those are Babar, Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, Aurangzeb. And also we learnt about the Mughal traditions of succession. And next we learnt about the Mughal relationship with the other rulers. Next we already learned Mansabdars and Jagirdar system and Japt and Jamindars. We already learned about this. Okay. Today we shall learn about a closer look about the Akbar policies. Today we shall learn about a closer look about Akbar's policies. Let us learn about this. Okay. The Akbar was a very good administrator. Akbar was one of the very good administrator. So he had a very good administration system. A very good administration system was introduced by the Akbar. So here the Abul Fazl, one of the minister of Akbar. Abul Fazl was the minister of Akbar. He explained the administrative systems of Akbar in his book called Akbar Nama. The Abul Fazl explained about the administrative system of Akbar in his book called Akbar Nama. Akbar Nama was one of the book written by Abul Fazl. In this book, he explained the administrative system of the Akbar. Especially, he explained the administrative system of the Akbar in the last volume. It is known as Ain-i-Akbari. Ain-i-Akbari is the last volume of the book called Akbar Nama. Akbar Nama was one of the important book written by Abul Fazl. Abul Fazl was the minister in the court of Akbar. Under the situation, Akbar introduced the good administrative system here. So those administrative system were explained by the minister called the minister. His name was Abul Fazl. Abul Fazl explained about this in his book. The name of that book was Akbar Nama. Akbar Nama was one of the important book written by Abul Fazl. So in the last volume, the Akbar Nama's last volume is called as Ain-i-Akbari. Okay. In this last volume, he explained the administrative system of Akbar. Let us learn what he explained in this book or in this last volume. We shall learn about that. Okay. According to the explanation of Abul Fazl, the whole kingdom of Mughal, especially the period of Akbar, it was divided into many provinces. The whole kingdom was divided into many provinces. Especially the Akbar has 15 provinces. Means he divided his kingdom into 15 provinces. Okay. the whole kingdom, according to the Abul Fazl, according to the Abul Fazl, the whole kingdom, the whole kingdom was divided into many provinces. Many provinces. Okay. Especially during the period of Akbar, he had the 15 provinces. We can observe the 15 provinces in Akbar time. Okay. These provinces were known as Subha. These provinces were called as Subha. These provinces were called as Subhas or Subha. Okay. The head of the Subhas, the head of the Subha was Subedar. Head of the Subha was Subedar. Rest of the situation, the whole kingdom was divided into many provinces. These provinces were called as Subhas. The head of the Subha was Subedar. Subedar was the head of these Subhas. Okay. He had the power. The Subedar had the power to look after the political and military functions in provinces. The Subedar had the power. The Subedar had the power to look after the political and military functions. Okay, for the smooth administration. He was also supported by the many officers. Here, the Subedar was also supported by the other officers. Let us be known who were the other officers who supports to the Subedar in the provinces. So, for what purpose he appointed many officers? Especially to maintain peace and security here. To maintain peace and security, and also to maintenance of the peace and order in his provinces. In his provinces, Subedar appoints many officers. With the help of those officers, he look after that provinces. Okay, let us learn who were the officers who supports the Subedars here. Especially the important officers were, the first one is Diwan. The first one is Diwan. He was one of the important officers in each provinces. Each provinces had the Diwans. Okay, Diwan means what were the work he has. He was the financial officer. Diwan was the financial officer. He was the financial officer. Okay. The next one is, Diwan was one of the important officer who supports the Subedar. The next one is Bakshi. His function. What was his function? Bakshi was the military paymaster. Bakshi was the military paymaster. Bakshi was the military paymaster. Next, the next officer was Sadar. The next one is Sadar. Sadar was the minister. Sadar was the minister in charge of religious and charitable patronage. Sadar was the one of the minister. What was his work? What was his function? He was the in charge of religious and charitable patronage. Sadar was the minister. In charge. He was in charge of religious and he was in charge of religious and charitable patronage. charitable patronage. Okay, Sadar was also one of the minister. He was the in charge of religious and charitable patronage. Okay, the next officer was Fauzdari. The next officer was Fauzdari. Fauzdari. Fauzdari was the military commander. Fauzdari was the military commander. Fauzdari was the military commander. The next, and also the last one of the last officer, he was Kotwal. I will write here Kotwal. Okay. The Kotwal was the town police commander. Kotwal was the town police commander. Kotwal was the Diwan, Bakshi, Sadar, Fauzdari and Kotwal. These are the some of the important officers who supports the Subedar to maintain peace and security and to maintain the peace and order in their provinces. Okay, the Subedar was the head of the provinces, means Subhas. Subha is the another name of the provinces. Provinces was known as Subhas. Subedar was the head. He had the power to look after whole provinces and maintain the peace and security here. And also he had the political and military. He had the power of to look after the military and political power here. Okay, he was supported by the many officers. Those were one is the Diwan. Diwan was the financial officer of the provinces. Next one is Bakshi. Bakshi was the military paymaster of the provinces. Sadar was the minister in charge. He was the minister in charge of religious and charitable patronage. Next one is Fauzdari. Fauzdari means he was the military commander. The next one is Kotwal. Kotwal was the town police commander. With the help of these commanders, the Subedar working in his provinces. Okay. Next, we learn what about the nobles' position in Akbar's periods. Let us learn about that point. Okay. The nobles. What were the position of the nobles during the period of Akbar? Let us learn about that. The Akbar's nobles. During the period of Akbar, there are so many nobles were there. Many nobles were there in the period of Akbar. Okay, they are commanded the large armies. The large armies under the control of the nobles. So, and also they receive large amount. These nobles, not only they have the large armies, and also they receive huge amounts of the revenue. Okay, so when the Mughals were powerful, when the Mughal emperors were very powerful, then on that time they are very loyal. These nobles were very loyal to the emperors. They are very loyal and the loyal the empire, and they functioned efficiently. They functioned efficiently from the beginning stage. They functioned efficiently to their master, means their rulers. The nobles had the large armies. They commanded the large armies, and also they received huge salaries, huge revenue. Okay, they are very loyal. When the Mughals were powerful, when the Mughals were very powerful, they are very loyal. They are very loyal and also they functions very efficiently for their masters. Okay. What about the end of the 17th century? What about the end of the 17th century? The 17th century, the end of the 17th century, when the Mughals become weak, then they are not ready to show their loyalty to their masters, means their kings. They are self-interested. Those nobles, they are start to build their own independent networks. Okay, and also their loyalties to the empire were weakened. Their loyalty to the their loyalties to the empire were weakened by their own self-interest, because they are not ready to show their loyalty to those rulers or their masters. So this was the situation. This was the position of the nobles in the Mughals kingdom. Okay, next we learn about what is the view of Akbar in the religion. What was the view of Akbar in the religious system? Okay, let us learn about that. So when Akbar was in Fatehpur Sikri, when Akbar was at Fatehpur Sikri, what was the vision of Akbar about religion? Let us learn about that. What was the vision of Akbar about religion? Let us learn about that. Okay, when Akbar was in Fatehpur Sikri, Fatehpur Sikri, Fatehpur Sikri. When Akbar was in Fatehpur Sikri during 1570s, when Akbar was in Fatehpur Sikri during 1570s, he started the discussion. He means Akbar. Akbar started the discussion on religion. He started the discussion on religion with the ulema. He started the discussion on religion with the ulemas and Brahmans, Roman Catholics, and Zoroastrians. Okay. So here, when Akbar was at Fatehpur Sikri, when he was Fatehpur Sikri in 1570s. So in this time, he start discussion about the religion. Especially, he start the discussion about the religion with whom he started the discussion about the religion? With ulema. We start the discussions with ulemas, Brahmans, Roman Catholics. Roman Catholics means they are Jesuit priests. They are the Jesuit priests. Okay, and also Zoroastrians. With these peoples, he started the discussions. Okay, where he started these discussions? In which place he started these discussions? He started these discussions especially in the one of the important place called Ibadat Khana. Ibadat Khana. Ibadat Khana. Ibadat Khana. He held his discussions. The place called Ibadat Khana. What is this Ibadat Khana? Ibadat Khana is the one of the important prayer hall or the discussion hall. Ibadat Khana was the discussion hall or the prayer hall of the Akbar. In this Ibadat Khana, he started the discussions on religion, especially with the ulemas, Brahmans, Roman Catholics and Zoroastrians. Okay, that place was called as Ibadat Khana. Ibadat Khana was the one of the discussions place hall or the prayer hall of Akbar. Okay, so he was very interested. He was very interested in the religion and social customs of different peoples. Akbar was very interested. Akbar was very interested in the religion and social customs of the different peoples. Okay, so the Akbar interactions with people of different faiths made him realize the Akbar's interactions. The Akbar interaction with people of different faiths made him realize that religious scholars who emphasized ritual and dogma were often bigots. So, Akbar's interactions with the people of different faiths, the Akbar's interaction with people of different faiths made him realize that the religious scholars who emphasized ritual and dogmas were often bigots. Bigots means who blindly followed the religion. Okay, so their teachings means those scholars' teachings created divisions. Those scholars' teachings creates divisions and disharmony amongst his subjects. Okay, this situation led Akbar to the idea of Sul-e-Kul. This situation led Akbar the idea of Sul-e-Kul. Sul-e-Kul. What do you mean by Sul-e-Kul? Sul-e-Kul. Sul-e-Kul. Sul-e-Kul means the universal peace. Sul-e-Kul means universal peace. When he start the discussion on religion with the other persons, other religions, on that time the new idea came in the mind of the Akbar. The new idea came in the mind of the Akbar. That is Sul-e-Kul. That idea was Sul-e-Kul. Sul-e-Kul means universal peace. Sul-e-Kul means universal peace. Means this is the idea of tolerance. This is the idea of tolerance. Tolerance means we should not discriminate the people on the basis of religion. We should tolerate all the religious peoples. We should tolerate all the peoples who are the different religion. We should not discriminate them. We should not discriminate. We should not discriminate those peoples on the basis of their religion. Okay, we should tolerate all the peoples of all religions. That idea was called as Sul-e-Kul. Sul-e-Kul means universal peace. When we tolerate all the peoples of all religion, there was no quarrel, isn't it? There was no quarrel. As a result, this led to universal peace. This type of one of the idea. This is the one of the important idea come in the mind of the Akbar. So that is called as Sul-e-Kul. So this Sul-e-Kul focused on a system of ethics. The Sul-e-Kul focused on a system of ethics, especially the honesty, justice and peace. Especially the honesty. Honesty, justice, peace. It led to honesty, justice and peace. Those are universally applicable. These are universally applicable, isn't it? So, Abul Fazl helped the Akbar. Abul Fazl, his minister, I already told. he was the minister of Akbar. The Abul Fazl helped the Akbar in framing. Abul Fazl helped the Akbar in framing a vision of governance. Okay, around this idea, Sulhi-Kul. Abul Fazl helped the Akbar in framing a vision of governance around this idea of Sulhi-Kul. Okay, so this is the main idea about religion of the Akbar. Sulhi-Kul. Sulhi-Kul means to tolerate all the peoples. There is no discrimination among the people and the people according to their religion. We should tolerate all the peoples who are living in different religion. Okay, so that is that idea, that new idea of Akbar is known as Sulhi-Kul. Sulhi-Kul means universal peace. Okay, so here Sulhi-Kul is focused. It focused a system of ethics. Sulhi-Kul focused the ethics of systems. It consists the honesty, justice and peace, which is universally applicable. These points were universally applicable. Means the whole world people, they accept these points. Okay. So this was the new idea of Akbar about the religion. And not only the Akbar followed this new Sulhi-Kul point, and also the Sulhi-Kul was also followed by the Jahangir and Shah Jahan. The Shah Jahan and later Jahangir was also followed the idea of Akbar, that is Sulhi-Kul. This idea, the Akbar's idea of Sulhi-Kul was later followed by the Jahangir and Shah Jahan. Okay, this was the vision of Akbar on the religion. Okay, next we'll learn about what was the position, what was the situation of Mughals empire in 17th century and after. Let us learn about what was the position of Mughals during the period of 17th century and after. Next, the Mughal Empire. The Mughal Empire in the 17th century, in the 17th century and after. What was the position of Mughal empires in the 17th century and after? What happens in Mughal dynasty? We shall discuss about that. Okay. I already told Mughals were the good administrators. The Mughals were the good administrator, and also they have the good military force. The Mughals were the good administrators, and also they have the good military forces. So these, the administrative and the military efficiency of the Mughal empire led to great economic and commercial prosperity. These administrative and military efficiency of the Mughal empire led to the great economic and commercial prosperity, isn't it? So, the many foreign travelers visited the Mughal kingdom or the Mughal empire. Many foreign travelers, many international travelers or the foreign travelers visited the kingdom of the Mughals. They explained the kingdom of the Mughals here. What type of explanation they given about the Mughal empires? Let us learn about that. Okay, the international travels described. The international travelers or the foreign travelers described it is the fabled land of wealth. The Mughal dynasty was the fabled land of wealth. Fabled. fabled land of wealth. Who described like this? The foreign travelers explained the Mughal kingdom. The Mughal kingdom was the fabled land of wealth. The foreign visitors explained or described. The foreign travelers described the Mughal kingdom or the Mughal empire was the fabled land of the wealth. Fabled land of the wealth means this is the rich. This is the one of the rich kingdom. Okay, the people who are living here, they are enjoying the richness. They have the more and more wealth. Okay, this was the explanation given by the foreign travelers about the Mughal kingdom. Not only they explained this, their kingdom was the fabled land of wealth, and also they continued their explanation. They continued, but at the same time they also told that the poverty, the state of the poverty is existed. The state of the poverty that existed side by side with the greatest opulence. Not only they called this the kingdom of the Mughal is the fabled land of the wealth. They also explained the state of poverty. They also explained the state of poverty. Also explained the state of poverty that existed side by side. That is existed side by side with the greatest wealth or greatest richness of this kingdom. Okay, and also they explained about the inequalities. They also explained the inequalities which was in the Mughal empire. They already explained that the inequalities were glaring. Glaring means dazzling. The inequalities were also dazzling or glaring in the Mughals empire. The inequality. We can also found the inequality in the Mughal empire or Mughal kingdom. How can we say there is a inequalities? How can we say? What was the evidence for that? How can we say there is a inequalities among the people? How can we say? What was the example for that? What was the witness we have? So here is one of the document tells about the inequalities of the peoples. For example, the document from the 20th year of Shah Jahan's reign. The document tells us, one of the document tells us about the inequality of the Mughals period. What was that document? That was the document of 20th year of Shah Jahan's period. It explains how the inequality was there in the Mughal empire. Okay, according to this document, during the period of Shah Jahan, there were 8,000 Mansabdars were working under the Shah Jahan. During the period of Shah Jahan, there were 8,000 Mansabdars. I already explained who are called as Mansabdars, isn't it? 8,000 Mansabdars were working under the Shah Jahans. Okay, total the number of Mansabdars were 8,000. Here, among these 8,000 Mansabdars, only 445 means 445 Mansabdars. 445. Only 445 members of the 445 Mansabdars have the highest ranking. Here they have the highest ranking means among 8,000 Mansabdars. Among 8,000 Mansabdars, only 545 Mansabdars were the highest ranking Mansabdars. Highest ranking Mansabdars were only 445 among 8,000 mansabdars, means they are only 5.6%. Here 445, the high ranking mansabdars, means they are only 5.6%. Okay, these 5.6% of members are mansabdars. Only 5.6% of the mansabdars receives 61.5%. They received 61.5% of the total income or total revenue. Understand the situation? The total mansabdars were during the period of Shahjahan's were 8,000. Among them, only 445 mansabdars were the high ranking mansabdars. 445 means they are only 5.6% of mansabdars. Okay, these mansabdars received 61.5% of the total revenue of the kingdom. They receive as the salary, in the form of salary for themselves and their troopers. Okay, they enjoyed very good life here. What about the others? So this estimate shows us, this document shows us there is a inequalities among the people and the people. Okay, here the mansabdars who receives more and more salaries and who receives the more and more revenues, they spent that revenue or they spent that salaries on the goods and producers. They spent the salaries which they are received by the kingdom, by the rulers. They spent that amount on the goods. On the goods means which goods they want. To buy that goods, they spent that amount on the goods and producers which were they want. Okay, when in this way, when some mansabdars, the richest mansabdars, they spend more and more money or the salaries on the goods and the producers, this huge expenditure benefited to the artisans and the peasantry who supplied the goods and producers. When the richest means high ranking mansabdars and the kings, not only the high ranking mansabdars, and here the mansabdars and also the kings were spending the money, more and more money, which goods they want, they are buying the money and producers here. Okay, for that purpose they are spending more and more money on that goods and producers. Okay, this huge expenditure only benefited to whom? Only benefited to the artisans and peasantry or peasants. This huge expenditure was benefited only to the artisans and peasants. Artisans and the peasants who supplied the goods and producers to these mansabdars and the kings. They are more and more benefited here. What about the other persons, other peoples here? What about the others? Means what about the primary producers? Here the primary producers, there is a lack of revenue. Means the huge amount was already spent on these artisans and the peasants, isn't it? Means the highest, the revenue was come under control of the kings and the other highest ranking mansabdars. Okay, they spent that money on the goods and producers which were supplied by the artisans and the peasants. What about the primary producers? They have the very less amount, very less revenue. They have the primary producers. The primary producers have the very less or little amount for the investment. Okay, as a result, the primary producers means the primary artisans and the peasants, peasants were facing the problems. There is very less money or less revenue to produce their goods. Okay. Next, this is the situation of the primary sections, primary producers. What about the poor and poorest peoples? What about the poor and poorest peoples? What was the situation of those peoples? They don't have any money. Means the poorest among them lived from hand to mouth. The poorest peoples lived from hand to mouth. They could hardly consider investing additional resources, tools and supplies to increase productivity. There is no money to invest the additional resource to produce goods or productivity, to make productivity. See, it is very difficult situation for the poor and poorest peoples. Okay, here only the richest persons only enjoying their life. The primary sections were also facing the problems, but the poor and poorest peoples, their condition is very miserable. There is no revenue, there is no amount in their hands. They are facing many difficulties. The poorest artisans and the peasants are facing many problems here. Okay, they are dissatisfied by this system. Okay, only in the Mughal system, Mughal kingdom, only the wealthier peasantry during the Mughals period, only the wealthier peasants, during the Mughal period, only wealthier peasants, artisanal groups, the merchants and the bankers were leading a very good life. They are only profited here. During the Mughal period, only the wealthier peasants, artisanal groups, the merchants and the bankers only led a very good life here. And also they are more and more profited by this economic system. The others were suffering here. More and more they are suffering here. This was the situation of Mughal kingdom. Next, the enormous wealth and resources. The enormous wealth and resources commanded by the Mughal elite made them extremely powerful. The Mughals were extremely powerful when they have the enormous wealth and resources. During the period of 17th century, the Mughal emperors were very powerful. Why they were very powerful on that time? Because they have the enormous wealth and also resources. These enormous wealth and resources made them powerful during the 17th century. Next, later, means after the 17th century, means the end of the 17th century, slowly the Mughal emperor slowly declined. From the beginning of the 17th century, they were more powerful because of their enormous wealth and resources. These enormous wealth and resources made the Mughal emperor very strong, very powerful. By the end of the 17th century, so these Mughal empire become weakened, and also means the emperor slowly declined. So when the emperor was slowly declined, when the rulers become very weak, on that time, what the subordinate did on that time? Especially, yes, his servants emerged as a powerful centers. The the servants, the subordinate rulers of the Mughals, they become more and more powerful. They start to build their own independent rule provinces. On that time, the subordinate of the Mughals, they start to build their own independent provinces. Especially on that time, the Hyderabad and Awadh. The Hyderabad and Awadh. The Hyderabad, the rulers of Hyderabad, and Awadh. They start to build their own independent provinces here. Even though they built their own provinces, their own independent provinces here, they continued to recognize the Mughal emperor in Delhi as their master. Even though they built their own independent provinces here, they continued, they recognized the Mughal emperor in the Delhi their master. By the 18th century, the provinces of empire had consolidated their independent political identities. From the 18th century, the provinces of empire had consolidated. The provinces has consolidated their independent political identities. This was the situation of Mughals during the period of 17th and the end of the 17th century. Okay, this lesson was ended. We shall stop here. Thank you.